Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sake Revolution. This is America's first sake podcast. I am your host, John Puma from the Sake Notes, also the administrator over at the Internet Sake Discord. Do come join us sometime. And I'm also that guy on the show who's not a sake samurai, just the sake nerd that we have around these parts.
And I am your host, Timothy Sullivan. I am the Sake Samurai. I'm also a sake educator, as well as the founder of the Urban Sake website. And every week, John and I will be tasting and chatting about all things sake and doing our best to make it fun and easy to understand.
That is right, Tim. And welcome back again. How have your sake New Year's resolutions been coming along? Have you been getting outside that comfort zone well?
I have. I try to get out of my comfort zone as often as possible, at least once a day.
Excellent. That's nice. I like that. I'm continuing to buy locally, and I'm trying to influence some places to get some more, to expand their sake lists. That's my goal, to get some extra stuff in the neighborhood. And still getting on there and exercising every day,
Wow.
Living the sake man lifestyle.
Well, we have kept up our resolutions for 1 week, so I think...
Well, I think every step counts,
yes,
right?
Yes. Step by step.
Every journey. So what are we doing today, Tim? What are we talking about?
We are headed up north. We're going to be doing another spotlight of a wonderful sake prefecture. And today we're heading up north to Iwate.
Iwate. Fantastic.
Yes.
I have never been to Iwate.
Well, just so our listeners have some idea, if you're on the main island of Japan and you go up north, Iwate is kind of the second most northern prefecture. It's on the Pacific side of the main island, just south of Aomori Prefecture. So it's very northern, it's very rural, sparsely populated, snowy, cold, and agricultural. So it is a very remote place to get to for sure.
That sounds very northern Japan.
It does.
I've always wanted to get over there, but it just never worked out.
Yeah, this part of Japan, Iwate, has about 20 sake breweries. So it's a little bit on the smaller side, but no slouch by any means.
Mm-hmm. All right. Okay. And I know this is a silly question. Tim, have you been to Iwate Prefecture?
I've been to Iwate. I have.
I guess a better question might be, how many times have you been to Iwate Prefecture?
I've been to Iwate at least 3 times.
Oh, all right.
Yes.
So you're an expert.
Not really.
At least on this show you are.
I'll take that.
I think I took a train through it once, but that's about it.
Yeah. So it's a really beautiful place. It is, as I mentioned, quite rural. And the place that I've visited 3 times is Nanbu Bijin Sake Brewery. So Nanbu Bijin is the makers of Nanbu Bijin Sake, and they are a very well-known sake producer in the export market. So they've been exporting their sake for a long time. And the president of Nanbu Bijin, Mr. Kuji, he is a big proponent of making sake a world beverage. So he sends his sake everywhere. Europe, the Middle East, Africa, South America, and the US. He literally travels the world promoting sake.
And on top of that, he is quite a character.
Yes.
For those who have ever met him or seen footage of him, he is a very, very, I don't know, I think jolly individual is a good way to describe him.
Well, his nickname is Mr. Sunshine of the sake industry.
So that'll do it.
That'll do it.
I think so. And for what it's worth, I think that whenever I think of Iwate sake, the thing that pops into my head, the first thing that pops in my head is always Nanbu Bijin, and that's probably from living here in New York. And they're a very big brand here, and they export a lot of their products, and they're very well regarded. They're good stuff.
Yes. I think if you live outside of Japan, Nanbu Bijin is probably the most famous sake from Iwate because of their really progressive attack of trying to export as much as they can. However, they're not the biggest brewery in Iwate.
Ooh, and who is?
Asabiraki is the largest brewer in Iwate Prefecture. Ooh. But I think Nanbu Bijin has made a bigger splash outside of Japan, and they've done their export work for years and years and years. So they got that name recognition because of that. I'm actually going to be tasting one of the sakes from Nanbu Bijin. Today, I have the Tokubetsu Junmai from Nanbu Bijin, which is a very, very well-known sake. I'm sure you've had it before, John.
Oh, I have. That's kind of like their staple sake. That's kind of, in my head, it's one of those things like, it's one of those sakes that you want to put in front of somebody who's never had sake before, and they're going to be like, oh, sake can do this? This is wonderful.
Yeah.
It's a crowd pleaser, I think.
And not only that, but the Tokubetsu Junmai from Nanbu Bijin also won the IWC Championship Sake Award, I think back in 2017. So it's a truly award-winning sake as well.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. I'm sort of taking a page out of your book today, Tim. Well,
are you stealing my resolution?
I'm stealing your resolution in a way. My understanding is that the sake I'm going to be drinking is very much in my comfort zone, but I've never had it before. So when I open up this sake and I taste it, it's going to be the first time I've ever tasted this sake live on the air with you.
Wow. So we're going to get a true, unvarnished reaction from you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, the only other thing I wanted to mention about Iwate, and I don't think you can have a discussion about Iwate Sake without talking about the Nanbu Toji Guild. So are you familiar with Toji guilds? Do you know what they are?
I mean, I can put two and two together, and I know what a Toji is, and I know what a guild is. So unless something's being lost in translation, I think I got it. But please, what specifically is a Toji guild?
Well, as you know, John, Toji means master brewer, and they have a number of guilds in Japan where brewers can actually kind of go to school and get a degree or a certification to become qualified as a master brewer. To work as a Toji in Japan, you do not require any degree or any certification. You can be promoted to master brewer by the brewery president, and having a certification from a guild is an optional route to go. But that having been said, the Nanbu Toji Guild from Iwate is arguably the most famous brewing guild in Japan. So they have a very concrete method for making sake and a style that is unique to that region and very famous in Japan. And a number of well-known Toji have studied with the Nanbu Guild. So it's one of the hallmarks of that region for sure.
Well, that's interesting. I didn't know that. See, we all learn on Sake Revolution. So what else do they have over there?
Well, one thing that I got to experience when I went to Iwate was a really funny way to eat soba. Do you like soba noodles?
I absolutely love soba noodles.
I do too, and I thought I would love this. It sounds great on the surface, but it was a little bit challenging. It's called Wanko Soba.
Wanko Soba?
Wanko, W-A-N-K-O, Wanko.
Ooh, I am not familiar with that. Tell me about Wanko Soba,
well,
please, Tim.
You get a little red lacquer bowl, and the server puts a little bit in your bowl, and then you slurp it down, like literally one mouthful. And then she refills your bowl again, and you take another bite, and then she refills your bowl again. So it's bite by bite by bite of soba. And I think you have to try to reach 100 bites or something like that.
It sounds like a lot of pressure. Somebody's standing there.
Someone is standing
and their job
over
is
you.
to put noodles in your bowl. What are the noodles like, though? Are they hot? Are they cold? Is there broth?
They're cold. Yeah, there's a little bit of broth,
okay.
But it's about slurping the noodles down bite after bite after bite after bite after bite.
So it's an endurance challenge.
Yes, it is. It's like Iwate competitive eating. Yeah. And it felt very high pressure for me. So I didn't really love it, but it was very fun to try it. And one of my great memories from visiting Iwate.
All right. This sounds like something I can do at home. I just need to convince my wife to stand over me with a pot and start pouring soba in a bowl for me over the course of probably an hour, because it's 100 a bite. Is it 100?
I think I'm making that up, but
oh, okay. All right.
Yeah,
an indeterminate number of bites.
Yes, as many as possible. I think that's the goal.
It's a challenge. See how many you can do.
Yeah, and we'll put a video of Wanko Soba eating in the show notes. So please check that out.
Excellent.
Great.
I actually want to see this video now. Do we have a video of you eating Wanko Soba? Oh, that's. Oh, come on, Tim.
Nope.
We gotta make this happen for our audience.
I have a shred of dignity left, so I didn't allow any.
Not after we're through with you.
So, you mentioned a little bit about your sake. Why don't you give us the rundown and introduce your sake first, John?
Okay, sure. The name of the brewery is Tsukinowa, and the sake is Tsukinowa Yonotsuki Midnight Moon is what they're calling it in English. And it's a daiginjo, so it's that high polish, alcohol added style. But the interesting thing about the alcohol added here, Tim, it's not neutral spirits.
Dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun. So yeah, I know that we in our episode on Junmai versus Aruten, we kind of went over that it's a neutral spirit that is added, and in this case, it is actually rice shochu that they distill in-house. And that is the alcohol that's being added to this.
Wow. That is not common anymore. And that would have been the old school way to do it. 200 years ago, they didn't have Brazilian sugarcane imported from Brazil.
I guess not.
Distillate of sugarcane. So they would use rice shochu. So that's really interesting that that's what they're using to fortify this sake, to make it an alcohol added style. Very, very cool.
Yeah. It is 16.5 alcohol by volume, so just a touch high, 50% milling. And the interesting thing is it uses a rice called ginginga, which is apparently a locally created rice that's sort of, their goal was to make an Iwate specific rice. It has a sake meter value of +5, so we're looking at something a touch dry, but really not. It doesn't seem like it's going to be moving the needle very much on dryness. But as I mentioned, I've never tasted this sake before, so I'm excited to give it a shot.
Excellent.
And you've got that Nanbu Bijin Tokubetsu Junmai, the famous Nanbu Bijin Tokubetsu Junmai.
The world famous. Now, I know it's interesting you brought up that unique sake rice, ginginga. And I know that Nanbu Bijin uses that rice for another sake they make. So
oh, really? Which one?
Nanbu Bijin has a Junmai Ginjo that uses ginginga sake rice. And the rice that they use for the Tokubetsu Junmai that I have with me today is called Gin Otome. So it is a second Iwate local rice that they use. Gin Otome, I think, is even more rare, and I was told that they actually grow it around the brewery. So this is a hyper-local Iwate rice that they use for this Tokubetsu Junmai. The alcohol for my sake is 15.5%. The rice milling of that Gin Otome is 55%. The SMV, how sweet or dry the sake is a +5. So we're looking at a lightly dry sake. And the acidity is 1.6.
All right. Well, Tim, why don't you take us on a journey of the award-winning Nanbu Bijin Tokubetsu Junmai?
All right. Excellent. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up. And give it a pour. All right. So I've got it in my glass now. Let's give it a smell. Okay. So this sake is well known for being very fruity. And this nose, this aroma is definitely holding up to that. Very much a complex fruit salad type of smell. We've got some pineapple, we have some melon, we have some strawberry, apple and pear. It's a wonderful mixture of different engaging fruit aromas. Very limited rice aroma, nothing lactic, earthy, or umami driven, much more fruity, drinkable. And you mentioned it being a great sake for beginners. I think this lines right up with what you said before about that. And being a Tokubetsu Junmai, or a special Junmai, the rice milling's 55%, as we mentioned, that makes this sake not terribly expensive. So I think you get a very fruity, luscious aroma for a really affordable price. And that's another thing that makes it very approachable for beginners. So I'm going to go ahead and give this one a taste. So it's smooth, balanced, but primarily fruity. So the aroma carries through to the flavor. There's a bit of a lingering finish. And this doesn't have the super velvety, silky smooth texture you might get in a daiginjo or a junmai daiginjo, but it is smooth enough and really enjoyable.
Smooth enough. Tim Sullivan, Sake Samurai.
It is really enjoyable. And for the price, it is a steal. It is a steal. The quality is really high for the price. So if you're looking for an approachable, easy to love, easy to drink, delicious, smooth sake, you're going to enjoy this. And again, it won the IWC Championship Award. So this was awarded like Best in Show at the IWC Wine Challenge a few years ago. And you really can't beat it. It's just easy to love. And the label has butterflies on it. So it's very easy to recognize, on the shelf.
Very distinctive.
Yes.
Although my understanding is they're currently going through a labeling change.
Yes, you got it. That's right.
When we were in Japan in February, we went to an Iwate prefecture antenna shop. And for those at home who are not aware, antenna shops are these little prefectural shops located mostly around Ginza in Tokyo. And they sell local goods like fruits and packaged foods and stuff like that, and sake from various prefectures. And we happened to be at the Iwate shop, and they had these Nanbu Bijin bottles, and I'm like, wow, this label is beautiful. What is this all about? And inquired with some people in the States who are familiar with such things, and found out this was just new labeling, new branding for the company. And the new labels are color-coded with they have the Nanbu Bijin like kanji, the logo for the brewery on it, but also the family crest of Kuji-san's family.
Yeah, their labeling strategy was a little bit all over the place up until now.
It really was.
I've seen a picture of the new labels you're talking about, and they're beautiful. They're
beautiful, simple, easy to understand.
Yeah, and color coded, and every grade has a different color, and they're really beautiful. So it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah. I'm of the opinion that when you do something like that, where you do color coding to do like your grade or maybe your rice top or something like that, it really makes it easy. If you don't know a lot about sake, you can say you had the one with the red label, the Nanbu Bijin with the red label, and then, or the blue one or whatever. And then you can easily get that again. And also if there's one that you haven't had yet, you're like, oh, I haven't tried this blue one yet. And then it gives you something to try. It promotes the brand in a really interesting way.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see how that new labeling strategy is going to be received. Yeah, so John, how about you? I'd love to get this raw, unvarnished take on your sake you've never had before. So let's
All right, let me
go.
Get the Midnight Moon bottle.
Yeah, and
this actually comes kind of partially wrapped in newspaper, so let me set that aside. And
your bottle has a beautiful orange label, doesn't it?
It does. It's a nice deep orange, almost like a burnt sienna for the art nerds out there. So one thing I'm noticing on the nose is a little bit of fruitiness, but also a nice little like steamed rice push behind it. So it's kind of like you have the fruitiness first, and right behind that is this wafting rice. I don't know if it's gentle wafting rice from the other room though, but it's definitely rice. All right. So that subtle fruitiness in the aroma isn't that present in the taste, but I do have kind of a nice bit of sweetness, which not expecting, given that this was a little bit on the drier side. So a tinge of sweetness. That riciness comes through, but it's not cloying. It's not aggressively ricey. Nice mouthfeel, a little bit silky and light, and a nice little hit of acidity kind of near the end on that, which I think is where those acidity hits usually hit. So it's really nicely balanced. This is a nice sake. It's not as decadent as a lot of other daikinjos that I've had, but it is definitely tasty. This is nice. I have to marinate on this for a little bit, Tim.
Yeah, that sounds really fantastic. That they're not just trying to make a fruit bomb that is like super silky, smooth, and fruity, and boom, that's it. It sounds like they're bringing a lot of nuance in there and a lot of layered flavors, which gives you more interest, more depth of flavor, and can make a sake really more approachable in a lot of ways, especially those super premium grades.
Yeah, and it is nice that this is a little different. Like, I do have a type, and I do gravitate towards those fruit bombs that you mentioned earlier. I like that light fruity kind of thing. Or big fruity kind of thing. I like fruity. How about that? But yeah, this is really nice. That sweetness in the front that I was thinking about, now that I've kind of sipped it a few more times, honey. That's what it is. So it's a little bit honey, and then like some rice, and then it kind of settles in with some acidity. This is really interesting. This is complex, and I'm up to the challenge. I'm taking this.
Well, I did mention that I had the good fortune to visit Iwate a few times, and every time I visited, I was headed to Nanbu Bijin Brewery. So I've had the good fortune to visit this brewery 3 times. And I did want to tell a little story about how they entertain their guests, because...
Is it a Wanko Soba challenge?
No. There's no Wanko Soba, thank goodness. But they do things a little differently. I've visited many, many breweries, and when you show up at a brewery as a guest, it's not uncommon, if you're an invited guest from the industry or media or, in the business in some way, they'll host you and take you out to a wonderful dinner, or they'll host you for a beautiful formal dinner in their company tatami room. And it's not uncommon to have a kind of a high-end, luxurious experience. And what Nanbu Bijin does, which is incredibly fun, is they invite you to party in the brewery's employee break room.
That sounds dangerous.
They have a coal-fired stove in there in the corner to heat the room. They have some banquettes around, and the rest of the people sit on milk crates or sake crates that have been turned over as little seats. And they order in some sushi, and then they heat sake on the little coal potbelly stove in the corner. And it is incredibly fun. All the brewers join in, and they welcome you, and they do some oyster shucking outside as well. And it is incredibly fun, but casual, low-key, approachable. And you feel like one of the people who works at the brewery. And the 2 young children of Kuji-san, the young kids that live at the brewery, come out and tug at your sleeve and practice their English with you. And it is incredibly fun and very casual and approachable, just like their sake. So I think it's a great representation of the way they treat their guests. They also craft sake to match that. Really approachable and fun.
It sounds like they're living that sake man lifestyle there. Yes. Working hard, drinking hard, playing hard. Yes. That sounds really nice. I mean, I've been to breweries, not nearly as many, and it's usually a fairly formal experience. So I've never been invited to the break room to sip sake with the crew. That sounds like a really special experience.
Yeah, it was great. And to make it even more special, one time I visited, they had just received the news that day that the brewery had won a gold medal for one of their sakes. So everyone was in an extra celebratory mood, and it was absolutely just so much fun. Everyone was ready to celebrate and welcome us, and it's just one of the fondest memories I have from a brewery visit.
What does a Nanbu Bijin brewery celebration feel like? What's that? What goes on with that? Or is that something that's outside the scope of what we can discuss on a podcast?
Well, it was lots of celebrating, lots of sake flowing, delicious local foods arriving, and people just pouring sake for each other, chatting, having fun, just really comfortable. You know, the thing that pops to mind is like, you know, a neighborhood barbecue kind of atmosphere.
All right.
But with lots of sake and gold medals.
Lots of sake and gold medals.
Award-winning sake and gold medals.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I have to get up there eventually. It sounds like a really fun time.
It's absolutely fantastic, and it's a really small town. I've stayed there a few times, and there's not a lot going on in the town. So the sake brewery is really, you know, one of the cornerstone businesses in this town. John, I know you like to go to snowy places, right? You went to Hokkaido
I do.
this year.
You know, this past year when we were in Hokkaido in February was the first time I had ever been to Japan in the wintertime. And it was magnificent. I absolutely fell in love with it.
Yep.
So I'm excited to do that again.
Yeah. Well, Iwate can deliver on that snowy dream if you want.
Okay. That sounds wonderful.
Yeah, and having sake warmed on the potbelly stove in the brewer's break room is really magical. So you have to experience
that's. So you went to Nanbu Bijin. What did you do? Oh, I sat in the break room and had warm sake with the brewers. It's like, what? That sounds like that's a fantasy. That doesn't happen. That's amazing.
It's a different way to approach it, and it was just so much fun.
That's my kind of hospitality. Yeah. I like that.
All right. Well, thank you so much to all our listeners for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed our little discussion of Iwate. If you'd like to show your support for Sake Revolution, one way that you can really help us out would be to take a couple of minutes and leave us a written review on Apple Podcasts. It's one of the best ways for us to get the word out about our show.
And if you are like me and can't get onto Apple Podcasts, please tell a friend and be sure to subscribe wherever you download your podcast so that every week when we upload a show, it will magically show up on your device of choice and you will not miss an episode.
And as always, to learn more about any of the topics, the breweries, or the sakes we talked about in today's episode, be sure to visit our website, sakerevolution.com, to look at all the detailed show notes.
And if you have a sake question that you need answered, sake prefectures you'd like for us to explore, sake brewery celebrations you want us to talk about, we want to hear from you. Please reach out to us. That email address is feedback@sakerevolution.com. So until next time, please remember, keep drinking all of that sake and kanpai.